the FIA spent 5 years designing the 2006 Formula One regulations. They consulted engineers, manufacturers, sustainability experts. They promised faster cars, better racing, and a greener future for the sport. Every major automaker bought in. Audi joined. General Motors launched Cadillac. Billions of dollars were committed on the back of that promise. And then the drivers actually got in the cars. Max Verstappen called them Formula E on steroids and said he is actively exploring options outside of Formula One. Lewis Hamilton said the cars feel slower than GP2. Fernando Alonso said even a chef could drive through corners at these speeds. And McLaren's team principal identified 3 safety hazards he called imperative to fix before the first race in Melbourne. 5 years of planning, billions in manufacturer investment. And it took exactly 3 days of testing in the Bahrain desert to expose that something is fundamentally broken. What you are about to hear goes far beyond driver complaints. There are 4 layers to this crisis, and each one is worse than the last. Here is the first. February 11, 2026, the Bahrain International Circuit, 35 degrees heat, 22 cars rolling out of garages for the first official preseason test of the new regulation era. This was supposed to be the moment the FIA's grand vision came to life. By lunchtime on day 1, the mood in the paddock had already shifted. Lewis Hamilton, driving for Ferrari for the first time under these regulations, climbed out of the car and told reporters the pace reminded him of GP2. Not a throwaway comment. GP2 is the feeder series, the junior category. Hamilton was saying that the pinnacle of motorsport now feels like the league below it. He then revealed a specific detail that spread through the paddock like wildfire. During a qualifying simulation at Barcelona, the fastest way around the track required 600 m of lifting off the throttle on a single straight on a qualifying lap. The one lap where you are supposed to be absolutely flat out, holding nothing back. 600 m of coasting. Why? Because the new regulations give the car a battery that depletes in roughly 11 seconds of full power. You recover that energy by braking or by lifting off the throttle early. So the optimal qualifying strategy is not to drive as fast as possible. It is to save enough battery on the straight so you can deploy it later. Hamilton called the systems ridiculously complex and said you need a degree to understand them. Day 2 is when everything caught fire. Max Verstappen finished his run program, parked the car, and held what might be the most damaging press session in recent Formula One history. He described the driving experience as not fun and used the phrase that will define this entire controversy: Formula E on steroids. He said the word management more than the word racing. And then he said the thing that made the FIA's commercial department lose sleep: a winning car no longer matters to him. Not unless it is enjoyable to drive. He is exploring other things outside of Formula One to have fun at this stage of his career. That is a 4-time world champion, the single biggest commercial asset this sport has, publicly flirting with walking away. F1 press officers reportedly contacted Red Bull requesting a meeting with Verstappen after those comments. He refused to walk anything back. But the quote that actually explains the technical problem better than any engineer's briefing came from Fernando Alonso on day 3. The 44-year-old described how Bahrain's turn 10 through 12 complex, historically a flat-out challenge that separated brave drivers from cautious ones, is now taken 50 kilometers per hour slower. Not because the car cannot go faster through those corners, but because wasting energy there costs you more time on the straights. The math penalizes bravery. As Alonso said, even the chef could handle the car at that speed. And then he added what everybody on the grid was thinking, but nobody had said so plainly: the driver's role is dying. Charles Leclerc owed in on wheel-to-wheel racing. He said overtaking has become extremely difficult, and that drivers feel like they are in the enemy's hands, because energy deployment strategy now matters more than driving precision. Oscar Piastri warned that race starts are a recipe for disaster. Oliver Behrman, 21 years old and only in his second full season, described the experience of lap after lap of energy management with a single word: sad. Not angry, not frustrated. Sad. You might expect the entire grid to be unified on this. They are not. Lando Norris, the reigning world champion, called the car a lot of fun and said he really enjoyed it. Then he looked at the camera and delivered a line aimed directly at Verstappen. If he wants to retire, he can retire. That is not banter. That is the fault line running through this crisis. 2 world champions, 2 completely opposite reactions. Norris sees a puzzle he wants to solve. Verstappen sees a sport that has abandoned what made it worth doing, and which one of them is right may determine whether these regulations survive. And if you needed proof that these regulations are separating teams into haves and have-nots before a single race has been run, Look at Aston Martin. 3 days of testing, 206 laps total, the lowest of any established team. A Honda data anomaly on day 1 limited Lance Stroll to 36 laps. By the end of the test, Stroll was asked what positives he could take from the weekend. His answer? The livery looks nice, sunny outside. The team was 4 to 4.5 seconds off the pace. Adrian Newey, the greatest car designer in Formula One history, joined Aston Martin to build a championship contender. Right now, he is overseeing a car that could qualify in a different time zone. Meanwhile, Mercedes topped the timing sheets with Kimi Antonelli's 1 minute 33.669, but completed only 282 laps after reliability problems. Ferrari ran 421 consistent laps and is already bringing a major upgrade for the second test. Red Bull's self-built Ford engine covered roughly 670 laps across both their teams without a single major failure. And the brand new Cadillac team, in its first ever Formula One test, managed 320 laps. A team that did not exist 18 months ago outpaced Aston Martin. Now everything you have just heard, the driver revolt, the quotes, the competitive chaos, that is the part of this story that everyone is covering. The next 3 layers are not, and the second one involves people potentially getting into crashes. McLaren team principal Andrea Stella does not use dramatic language. He is an engineer by training, methodical, precise. So when Stella publicly identified 3 safety hazards and used the word imperative to describe fixing them before Melbourne on March 8th, the paddock listened. The first involves race starts. The 2026 regulations eliminated a component called the MGUH, which previously kept the turbocharger spinning between gear changes. Without it, the turbo essentially falls asleep the moment a driver lifts off the throttle. To build enough boost pressure for a clean launch off the grid, drivers now need over 10 seconds of hard revving. During practice starts in Bahrain, the results were genuinely alarming. Only 2 attempts out of multiple tries produced anything resembling a normal getaway. Franco Colapinto's car triggered its anti-stall system. Piastri said drivers would not lose 5 meters at the start, they would lose 6 or 7 positions. Now picture that on a real grid. 2 cars bunched together, some launch cleanly, some crawl, some stall completely. Stella said it plainly, the grid is not the place where you want cars failing to take off. The second hazard is the one that frightened people during testing more than anything else. When a car's battery depletes mid-straight, it loses roughly half its total power almost instantly. Not a gradual fade, a cliff edge. One moment you have over 1,000 horsepower, the next you are down to about 400 from the combustion engine alone. The car directly behind you might still be deploying full electrical energy, still accelerating while you are effectively engine braking. Toto Wolff reported observing 50 to 60 km/h speed differentials between cars on the same straight during testing at Barcelona.